We're all familiar with the story of Easter, but have you ever wondered what that story would sound like if it were told from the perspective of someone who lived during those times and saw things from a different point of view? Well, singer-songwriter David Olney wondered the same thing, and the result is his latest EP called The Stone. It's a collection of songs, stories, as told by a cast of characters that you probably wouldn't expect to hear from. There's a con man, a donkey, a soldier, and even a murderer. And I tell you, the songs are absolutely fascinating. Well, I got the chance to talk to David about The Stone and some of his other work, and I'll tell you, David is just as fascinating as his music. So enjoy the interview. David, welcome to Our Kind of Music. How you doing?
Oh, I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me join you.
Hey, I've listened to The Stone a couple of times now, well, at least a couple of times. And then I was intrigued to read on your website that you played it pretty much. Did you play all the tracks at the church you played at?
Yeah, and we played them at we played a gig at the Station Inn here in town, and you know, played them one right after another. That was with the band at the Station Inn, and it's a different thing when you hear them all one after another. You know, when I go out with Sergio and just play regular gigs, I'll just do maybe one or two, maybe three songs from The Stone, and you just fit them into, you know, sort of the other songs that we normally do, so that I don't know, it has a different impact when you just sneak one in.
Yeah.
But when you do them all back to back to back, you know, as the 6 songs, then it has a different, it's kind of a solemnity or something to it. It's a different experience.
What was the reception like at the church?
Oh, they loved it. And I was kind of surprised. Something like, who's the brains behind the operation, you know, mentions rape and murder. And
Right.
I thought they took that awfully well. And they were quite open to it. I think it appeals to people, and a lot of people that you would see in church are having the same doubts that people not in church are having, and to have someone sort of step up and express those doubts, or you know, they respond to it in a positive way.
That's
And it makes,
interesting.
I think kind of what was in my mind in doing these songs was the story, the Easter story has been presented so many times, and so much of it depends on these images that I think most people just don't take as real. They don't receive the story in any kind of realistic way. And I was just trying to present aspects of the story in another, you know, sort of more visceral way, I would say.
Right, right.
And not worry about the theology. That's sort of an add-on. Some events happened a long time ago, and then the theology was kind of, layers of it over the centuries have been added on, so that it's almost buried the story itself.
Well, the track that I liked the best was, at least that I enjoyed, was Barabbas, and then the story behind that.
You know, I read he's mentioned in all 4 of the Gospels, I think, and then I read, there was a book by Kver Lagerkvist, this Swedish writer, and I think they made a movie out of it, and Anthony Quinn was in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just centering on Barabbas, and I really can't remember the details of the book, except instead of mentioning this guy in passing, it sort of stopped and looked right at him, and I remember being struck by that, and I think it stuck in the back of my mind. And when I started messing around with these songs, that's what I wanted to do, was these peripheral characters that are in the story instead of just mentioning them and just following Jesus step by step. No, just stop and have a conversation with the donkey that carried Jesus into Jerusalem, or talk to Barabbas, have an encounter with these people,
Yeah.
and kind of get their sense of what did they think was going on. I mean, this something very strange happened, and even if you remove the sort of supernatural aspects, it still was a very weird circumstance, I think. And I was trying to get a hold of that.
Well, like you said, the same story has been told for so long, and I mean, this is really a fresh perspective on it, almost more realistic.
Yeah.
And it does make you wonder what was going through the mind of the people back then, and
yeah, it's always the first song that I wrote in this stuff, and that was over 20 years ago, was Jerusalem Tomorrow. And I think I remember one of the ideas in the back of my head was that how would you, if someone who actually was the son of God or some heavenly being showed up, how would you know that that's what they were?
mm-hmm.
It seems to me that it would sort of be impossible. There's no way. And we're sort of geared, I mean, after Jim Jones and David Koresh and any number of other people that claim to have that sort of special inroad to God or something, and they all turned out to be frauds. Our mind is set to not believe any of that crap.
Right.
But what if it was true? And then I don't know, how would you know that? It seems to me that would be more difficult than people assume that it would be.
Yeah, well, especially at that time, and still today, a couple thousand years later, we're still questioning things.
What question?
More and more people are.
Science and technology explains so much stuff that 2,000 years ago, they were unexplainable. Lightning was unexplainable.
Right.
And that got put into the supernatural category. And why did lightning happen? Well, somebody, some gigantic person, either God or Zeus,
right,
was having a little fun up there or something,
Yeah.
I mean, so much of your life was a complete mystery that was unexplainable. And now we live in a more scientific age, and there's less and less mystery, but there's always going to be some.
Well, actually, just the other morning, yesterday morning, there was a piece on the CBS Sunday Morning Show about the Shroud.
Uh-huh.
And taking another look at that, and the guy that they were talking to, I mean, he's a self-admitted agnostic. I mean, which most scientists are.
Yeah.
And he was getting into what was always described as the miracle rising, and how maybe that's not what they witnessed. Maybe it was just finding the shroud. That's where that story, fable, whatever you want to call it, where that came from. And
that seems to me. Well, we see things, Elvis sightings,
right?
And that after a figure of some note dies, there's almost always something connected. Well, he didn't really die, because so-and-so saw him down the laundromat last week. That's almost the same thing with Che Guevara. There have been Che Guevara sightings.
Right.
He didn't really die. The government just wants you to think that. That's almost automatic.
Well, you mentioned that you wrote Jerusalem Tomorrow like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Now, some of these songs, you've got 6 tracks. Some of them are new, though, right? That you built upon this story. Now, which ones are
the newest one? Let me look. I got a copy. The newest ones are Flesh and Blood, A Soldier's Report, and Brains.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in the last, 5 years. But basically, just every now and then, one of these songs the idea for one of these things would just pop into my head, and I would just go ahead and finish the song, and almost without exception, I would say, I can't play this. No one, at this point, nobody knows who Barabbas was, and you know, at a club, people are likely to be sort of offended that you would bring up a religious idea anyway. And, you know, I don't want to have to explain all these things in the middle of a set.
Right.
And I never thought to put them all together. And then Sergio Webb, the guy that plays guitar with me when we're on the road, he said, you know, you might do well to just put those songs together in some form. And I started, you know, with film noir. I was experimenting with just getting 5 or 6 songs around a theme and just keeping it that short a project. And the you know, the Stone songs, I had all those written, and my idea of how to do them was fairly simple. So the recording process was you know, pretty straightforward. You know, so it was just a natural thing to do. The next one is going to be harder, I'm sure.
Well, what's the next one in the series going to be?
I'm not sure what it's going to be, but I know it's going to be harder, you know, because what happens every time you do something, go, oh, that was easy.
Yeah.
Let's do another, and then, then your heart begins.
Well, with the Stone, you didn't set out to make this all come together as a package initially. I mean, obviously, because the one song goes back 20 years.
Oh, way back. But once I went into, you know, I'd recorded Jerusalem Tomorrow, and I'd recorded Braze, and I'd recorded Barabbas and earlier projects. But to put all, you know, I could just sneak them in.
Yeah.
Within a bunch of other songs, and it was like people didn't notice it that much.
Right,
when you put them all together, then it kind of becomes the elephant in the room that you have to acknowledge. I mean, you have to.
I'd have to give the church a lot of credit for being open.
Oh yeah, they're
because they're not your typical hymnals or anything. I mean,
no, I was very touched that they would be.
I'll bet.
And they brought it up. Will you do these songs at a service? I was thinking, you know, sure, that's an honor. You know.
Yeah.
You know, I've got involved in that church because the school that my daughter went to and that my wife teaches at it's a Waldorf school. It's this Steiner schools, they're called in Europe. And it's a particular kind of education with a lot of emphasis on the artistic stuff, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, they were just starting out, and they couldn't find a place to put their school. They'd been someplace else, and they'd been at another church, actually, and had been kicked out because those folks, I think, thought that the school was sacrificing goats, and I don't know what they thought. It was very anti-Christian.
Yeah.
And there was really kind of a crisis for the school. My daughter was in the 3rd grade, and I'm going, I don't want to go through this. And when this church, the Trinity Presbyterian, said, well, you can use our space, they basically saved the school. And I said right away, I'm going to join the congregation, because if there's any stink that comes up, I want to know about it, because this is too angst-ridden to go through this crap again.
Right.
And I've really gotten into being a part of the congregation, and it's anything for me as a musician that takes me out of just the music mold and makes me deal, you know, to go to a church or be in a bowling league, not the equivalent or anything, but anything that just takes you out of the music world, expands the possibilities for things to write about. It keeps you grounded in reality.
Well, were you going to be playing?
Bowling right there is one of the anchors of reality.
What's that?
Bowling leagues.
Well, that and bass fishing, you know.
Yes, there you go. And that's just in the B range.
Right. We can go on and on.
Oh, yeah, we could go through the whole alphabet.
So, were you going to be able to play something from the Stone?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Let me do Well, let me do Jerusalem Tomorrow. That's the one that got it all started.
Okay.
Man, you should have seen me way back then. I could tell a tale, I could make it spin. I could tell you black was white, I could tell you day was night. Not only that, I could tell you why. Back then, I could really tell a lie. I'd hire a kid to say that he was lame. Then I'd touch him, and I'd make him walk again. And I'd pull some magic trick. I'd pretend to heal the sick. I was taking everything they had to give. It wasn't all that bad a way to live. Well, I'm in this desert town, and it's hot as hell. But no one's buying what I've got to sell. I make my lame kid walk. I make a dumb guy talk. I'm preaching up a storm both night and day. Everyone just turns and walks away. I can see that I'm only wasting time. So I head across the road to drink some wine. This old man comes up to me and says, I've seen you on the street. You're pretty good, if I do say so myself. But the guy come through last month, he was something else. Instead of calling down fire from above, he just gets real quiet and talks about love. And I'll tell you something funny. He didn't want nobody's money. Not exactly sure what this all means. But it's the damnedest thing, I swear, I've ever seen. Well, since that time, every town's the same. I can't make a dime. I don't know why I came. I decide I'll go and find him, find out who's behind him. He's got everyone convinced that he's for real. Well, I figured we can work some kind of deal. He offers me a job, and I say fine. He says I'll get paid off on down the line. Well, I guess I'll string along, don't see how too much could go wrong. As long as he pays my way, I guess I'll follow. We're heading for Jerusalem tomorrow.
Beautiful.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks. This whole album, I love the take on it. You know, the different perspectives, like I said, and that one in particular. You know, it reminds me of there's another song I heard that put Jesus he was on a trailway bus, and all he was he traveled from town to town, just performing little miracles, you know.
Yeah.
And it's these
folding up
kind
maps.
of, what's that?
Folding up maps.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and it does make you wonder about the whole second coming thing too. Is, you know, how really would he be treated if that actually happened, if it hasn't happened already?
Yeah. It's almost, I was talking to a fellow. People believe in stories. I mean, we watch, you know, Westerns, we watch detective things. I mean, a story is something, I think we had to develop that early in our, you know, human development, just to keep track of stuff, because it took us, you know, thousands and thousands of years to figure out how to write things down.
Mm-hmm.
How do you keep track of information, but you tell a story?
Right.
And I think it's just hardwired into our brains to respond to, you know, that this is where you get your information. And we, you know, nursery rhymes and Mother Goose and all the stuff that we get growing up, and we accept. No one gets all upset that, you know, Snow White was not really real. Really? I'm outraged. Are you kidding me? You know, death to the Brothers Grimm, you know? And we don't do that. But on this particular story, and maybe after all the horrors of religious wars over the centuries, maybe they got it coming. But for whatever reason, we hold this story to a much more difficult standard than we do, you know, Shakespeare plays, or, you know, we don't, Hamlet?
Yeah.
You know, they didn't get that right. Well, you know, screw that play. You know, I mean, even if there's things that we can find that are historically inaccurate about Hamlet, we don't discount the whole story. But that's the argument against the Easter story, or any of the Christian stories, or any of the Buddhist stories, or the Islamic stories.
Well,
you know?
Stories being what they are, I mean, I don't know about you, but even my own stories, every time I tell them, they get a little bit bigger and a little bit better. You know, so imagine what would happen to us, you know, a good story over a couple thousand years. I mean, it's going to be embellished upon, you know.
Yeah, things that happened in my lifetime, like the Vietnam War, that I can remember going on. I wasn't in it, but I mean, it was a part of my reality.
Yeah,
that if I didn't play my cards right, I could be put in a position where people were shooting live ammunition at me.
Right.
And it really influenced decisions that I was making, and I would sort of follow it. And then years go by, and you go back, or you hear some, you know, commentator on TV talking about, you know, they start talking about the mistakes made in the Vietnam War and what we should have done and how we could have won the war and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And they're presenting it in such a way, I'm going, I don't remember it that way.
Yeah.
You know, I can't assume that the person is just deliberately lying for personal gain or something like that.
Yeah.
I assume they're giving their version as they remember it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, it's so frustrating to me when the future is impossible to predict, and the present is going on. I mean, all around you. I can't really figure out what's going on there. I used to count on the past as at least being stationary.
Right.
It turns out it's pretty wriggly too. You know, it kind of gets away from you pretty, slips out of your hand. You know.
Well, So the next coming up in the series after this,
Yeah.
you said you don't.
Well, I think it's going to be, I think, a little less ambitious. I think it's going to be basically 6 songs. One of them is going to be about, it'll take place in like 1920, and it's a kind of a murder love triangle type thing.
So that'll be your
And that's
anchor
going
for
to be
that.
half of it. And then the other half is, I don't know how far back you go, but I remember
I'm 56.
Chuck Willis. Then you wouldn't remember this, but Chuck Willis, who was king of the stroll and did I don't want to hang up my rock and roll shoes, and he had hit records, and one of them was this song called Betty and Dupree. And it was just 3 verses, and it turns out that that's kind of an old, it's kind of like Frankie and Johnny. They're just sort of folk characters that appear in a lot of songs. So I wanted to do of his version of Betty and Dupree, and then do 2 other songs looking at that story from different angles.
Okay.
So it's a little, it's not as ambitious as The Stone, but hopefully it'll be entertaining.
Well, I've enjoyed this, and I listened to Film Noir a few times too. Went through that,
Yeah.
and I just had a hell of a lot of fun going back through your library of music that you've done. You know, to get more and more familiar with it. And I went back at least 10 years just listening while I was doing other things.
It goes back forever. It's shocking how long I've been doing this.
No, it's great.
Oh, yeah, I'm not going to leave Nashville till they pay me.
It's good to have a goal.
Yeah, it's good to have a dream, isn't it? Another thing I say is, if I want a nice quiet evening by myself, I book a gig in Nashville. It's getting a whole lot better. A lot better now that I have my crack staff.
I was going to say, I find that hard to believe that, I mean, I've heard you've got a pretty good following there.
Yeah, it's been years ago. I had a band called the X-Rays, and we had a good local following, and then it pooped out. And I went back to doing what I originally did, which was being a folk singer solo. And at least in Nashville, they weren't looking for that.
Yeah.
And so there was just many years where, if I played in Nashville, I played up to like 3 or 4 people.
How long have you been in Nashville? When did you move there?
I moved here in mid-'70s.
Oh, okay.
So I've been here at least 30 years. When I go back and count it, I get so depressed and confused.
Yeah. Well, I know there's younger singer-songwriters just look up to you, whether you know it or not.
No, I run into them. I'm very honored.
That's great.
When someone, some kid will say, is it okay if I do one of your songs? I'm going, are you kidding me? There is such an honor when people, go to the trouble to learn your songs and do it and make it a part of their sort of worldview. Yeah, that's really gratifying. But it was certainly, there were a lot of years when that wasn't going on.
But there have been a few artists that have recorded your songs, though.
Oh yeah. Emmylou Harris really did this wonderful thing for me, which she recorded that song "Jerusalem Tomorrow," and became aware of other songs that I'd done, and eventually did Deeper Well, a version of Deeper Well. Yeah. Daniel Lenoir added some verses to it. But she and Linda Ronstadt did a song called 1917, and Emmylou was sending songs of mine to Linda Ronstadt. That's how they knew. Emmylou was great.
Wow.
And Linda Ronstadt ended up doing a song, Women Across the River.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then besides that, Del McCoury did a song of mine, and this blues singer, Lonnie Brooks, did a song of mine. And that's fantastic.
Yeah, it is.
I'm proud that it's over sort of a wide range of artists.
Yeah.
And I think when you do like these writers' nights, writers in the
In the
round. I don't know
circle,
if
yeah.
yeah, you may get 4 writers, and when they're good, it's a very enjoyable experience. But it occurs to me that anybody can write 4 or 5 songs that are acceptable.
Mm-hmm.
It's only when you've done it for a good long time and you have a whole body of work, that you can really see the worth of someone's
Yeah, yeah.
gift.
And the
For
respect
one,
you've gained for your work. I
yeah,
mean, that
yeah,
says a lot.
respect comes and goes. I thought I played so many, lame gigs, either belligerent crowds or invisible crowds. I mean, it's so beautiful when people are there, and I enjoy that so much. But in reality, I really can't count on that being there. And it's very difficult. But the thing during those times when there wasn't any audience, you have to learn to be your own measuring stick.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult. So, nobody's coming out. Maybe these songs aren't any good. And then you got to go, no, they are good. If people give these songs a chance, they're going to see that. And you kind of build up this toughness inside.
Well, I was going to ask you along that line, but you pretty much answered the question. And my question was, I've seen songwriters perform, and I've been at venues where the people just aren't listening,
Yeah.
and I'm a listener. I love good lyrics, that really pull at you, can have you
Yeah.
laugh in 1 minute and your eyes welling up with tears the next.
Yeah.
I mean, that's powerful stuff. And it always amazes me that when people just don't pay attention. But you pretty much answered how that makes you feel, and that you have to move beyond that.
Yeah. Well, I did a tour back in '89 where I opened up for Melissa Etheridge,
Mm-hmm.
whose music I really love and who I really respect and like as a person. She herself and her band and her crew treated me very well. But when I'd open up as a solo folk singer to her fans who had, waited in line to get the ticket and everything, I wasn't what they wanted to hear.
Right.
And it was like bedlam. And it was like, what am I going to do? And you just have to concentrate so hard on what the song is supposed to be.
Yeah.
And make that your focus and do justice to the song. And don't worry about the audience.
Yeah.
And the amazing thing to me is that I still run into people on the road. They say, "Oh yeah, I saw you with Melissa Etheridge and such." And I say, "I kind of remember that gig. It was total bedlam."
Yeah.
Says, "Oh no, I was in the back. I thought it was really good." The weird thing is, you can, in that kind of situation, you're unaware of the people that are listening because they're not making any noise.
Right. It's the ones
You're only aware of the ones that are making noise,
Yeah.
but they're always out there, and you have to assume their presence. In the worst of situations, you have to assume that someone is out there and really wants to hear your song and hear you do it right.
That's a great story. I mean, the first time you hear that, you get that kind of feedback. That's just got to make you feel so good that it was worthwhile.
Oh yeah.
That it was.
Yeah. I don't want to make it sound like this tour with Melissa was a drag.
Oh no.
It was a really great experience, and it built up this sort of toughness inside me, how to deal with it, and it showed me that you can't assume that nobody's hearing. You have to assume, even in an empty room,
Yeah.
that someone just out of
Yeah.
that you are not aware of is out there listening to it.
Right.
Otherwise, you shouldn't be up there at all. I mean, any fool can get up there when people like what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's simple.
Yeah.
Getting up there when it's in doubt, that's when you find out what you're made of.
Well, did you have something else you wanted to play for us?
Yeah, I'll play I'll do this. I'll do one from film noir.
I won't say which my favorite was from that. Maybe I'll luck out and you'll play it.
So tell me later.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna play this. I'm gonna play this one regardless. It's called "Frank Is Gone." Downtown streets slick with rain. Watch your step. Don't talk to strangers. Feel the rhythm on the track. Don't turn round. Don't turn back. I can't stay here anymore. I forgot why I came. Some things are worth fighting for. Leave your number, leave your name. Gracie leaves the front light on. She waits for Frank, but Frank is gone. Frank is gone, he won't be back. Don't turn round, don't turn back. Yeah, I know him. He's okay. I think he left here yesterday. Where'd he go? I told you. He went away. Yeah, I know where, but I can't say. I can't stay here anymore. I forgot why I came. Some things are worth dying for. Leave your number, leave your name. Downtown streets slick with rain. Watch your step. Don't talk to strangers. Yeah, I know him. He's okay. I think he left here yesterday. Yeah. Yeah. Gracie leaves the front light on. She waits for Frank. Frank is gone. Frank is gone. He won't be back. Don't turn around. Don't turn back. No, 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 don't turn around. Don't turn back. Don't turn around. Don't turn back.
Beautiful.
Boy.
I mean, it just sounds
Warts
like
and all.
you just can't help but just picture a dark, foggy alley somewhere with that one.
That, we played these. We played Sergio and I out in San Francisco at this film noir film festival, and it was great. I mean, the movies that we saw, Gilda, this movie was with Rita Hayworth. Yo! But anyway, San Francisco was like a big city in the film noir movie thing. There were a lot of references to it. And, you know, at least a couple of nights we were out there, the fog rolled in, and it was, I mean, total black and white film noir kind of atmosphere. And that project made me think, you know, on the way back, you know, Mozart and those guys, I mean, there was all instrumental music for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had operas and they had church cantatas and all that, but symphonies and stuff would be without lyrics.
Yeah.
And the emotion that's conveyed through the music is really very powerful, and in a lot of ways much more effective than saying it lyrically. If you could convey through music that the fog is rolling in, it's a whole lot more powerful than, say, the fog is rolling
Exactly.
in.
Yeah.
You know, and the film noir stuff, and I think in my writing generally at this stage of the game, I try to let the music do the talking a little bit more than I used to.
Yeah. No, I like I said, I listened to that one a few times, and so now I've got to get a copy of it because I love it. I mean, I've already got a copy of The Stone, so.
Okay, we'll get film noir.
No, that's great.
The hard copy.
Wow, you know.
Yeah, hard copy. Now there's like a great term for a film noir movie. A hard copy.
Hey, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Oh, this is fun. This is fun and unique. You know, for me, the computer cyber. Oh, hello, Dave.
Well,
how are you doing? Very good. Nice eyebrows, kid.
Okay. Well, you put quite a few videos up on your website. I noticed that. So you're keeping up with the times.
Oh yeah, I'm right on the cutting edge. I'm hanging 10 on the big wave of technology.
Well, once again, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us, and thanks for being here on Our Kind of Music. And
well, thank you. Thanks for your being there. It really helps out a whole lot. Makes, you know, you go out and play these gigs and stuff, and you wonder, are you getting across to people? And it really helps what you do.
Yeah.
And others like the shows and stuff. I really appreciate it.
I just got to figure out a way to get performers like you into Vegas. You know.
Heck, yeah, Vegas.
Well, because a lot of them, I see people playing dates in Phoenix, and then they skip right over, and sometimes they'll go up to Reno, and then others will go straight to California.
The assumption is that the only place to play in Vegas is, you know, the Caesars Lounge or whatever, you know, the casino places. And I'm sure it's just another town. There's got to be rock and roll clubs and folk clubs and whatever, where people to get together and listen to stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love a chance to get out there.
All right. All right. Well, thanks.
All right. Thank you, man.
All right.